Hey, come on, walk with me. I got something to share with you. If I told you that the natural resource that we use the most in the world is water, you probably wouldn't be too surprised. But if you knew that the second most used resource is aggregate, which is sand, gravel, and crushed rock, I bet you would be surprised. But it's true. Sand, gravel, and rock are incredibly important for our economy and the activities that we produce, industry all over the world. Now, in Canada, where I live, the demand for aggregate is actually one big gravel truck load per year for every man, woman, and child. The per capita consumption, one full gravel truck load per year. Imagine that. Now, that's just for paving roads, building sidewalks, basements for our new homes. It's pretty high. Now, of course, the consumption rates depend a lot on climate. But looking at the United States, a recent report that was done by the U.S. Geologic Survey estimated that the average new home in the United States requires 100 tons of aggregate. Like the stuff behind me that's coming from this gravel pit. 100 tons to build. That's 4 big gravel trucks just to produce a new home. And if you include the road that's in front of that house, well, it doubles. And so let's just keep going with the math on that. Taking new housing start information from 2016 in the United States was about 782,000 new homes were built. And you add that all up, the amount of gravel needed just to produce those brand new homes in 2016, just in 1 year, would cover a city the size of Tampa, Florida, or Fresno, California, or if you're in Canada, Mississauga, Ontario, and it would cover it 1 foot thick with aggregate. Wow, I was pretty surprised when I found that out. Now, that's just houses. That doesn't include schools, skyscrapers, sidewalks, all the roads we build. In fact, in China, the plan between now and 2030 is to build, I think it's 165,000 miles of new roads in China. So imagine the amount of aggregate they're going to need. So the reality is that we don't often think about, the land use that's associated with cement and asphalt as being a major footprint, like in order to supply it. But it really is. It's the second largest. In British Columbia, actually, surface mines like this gravel pit will be larger than any surface mines for metal or for coal by 2060, because the population growth is increasing the amount of demand and our need for more of this stuff. So it's not just the footprint either, though, that's an issue with this. It's very interesting as we drive our economy, but we're trying to also lower our greenhouse gas emissions. There was a report done, I think it's in 2012, by the California Geologic Survey. Yeah, that's right. And they tallied up the amount of greenhouse gas emissions associated with the diesel burnt by the gravel trucks just moving gravel from a pit like this to where it's going to be used. So just the diesel to transport that gravel. And that adds up to 0.3% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in the state. That doesn't include what happens when the gravel gets to where it needs to be and what happens with it. It doesn't include the GHGs that are produced as we're mining it, or for all of the equipment that we have to produce, like the trucks and the conveyors and all of that stuff. So it's really in our best interest if we can minimize the amount of aggregate footprint that we really need. And business as usual into the future probably isn't going to cut it. So there's 2 things that come to mind. There's a lot of things we can do, but 2 things I wanted to share with you today that we can do. First of all, we can recycle. Recycling's not anything new. We're pretty used to that. We have this amazing statistic that I think in the United States it was 587, what was it now? Well, here's how it works out. 25%, between 25 and 30% of the total demand for aggregate could be met by recycling stuff that we're demolishing. So when we're digging up old roads, like you can see behind me here, there's a big pile of asphalt over there that's been dug up. It's going to be recycled. That kind of stuff. Or if we're leveling a building and we pull away the concrete and we don't put it in a landfill but we recycle it, then we can reduce our overall footprint demand for aggregate from gravel pits like this one by a third. That's huge. I mean, if you multiply that over the world, that's a lot of footprint. The second thing that we can do, that's pretty easy, and we're doing it a lot, I'm just going to switch you around here to the other side of me, is we can use gravel pit land twice. So rather than just having gravel pits and then leaving them, which often actually they don't seem to get reclaimed a lot, we could do a better job of converting them into things we need. So for example, here's a good use. I've got a gravel pit on one side. This used to be a gravel pit. Now it's a ball diamond, right? Or there's tennis courts over there. We also see a lot of golf courses being prepared on old aggregate pits, or even entire subdivisions built on that land. So we're getting a 2-for-1 on the amount of land that we need, our footprint, to still enjoy our high quality of life, but to reduce our consumptive requirements on the earth. I mean, if you think about it, one gravel truck load per year for everybody, especially as we have new emerging economies in Asia, can you imagine the amount of footprint that takes and the amount of greenhouse gas emissions it's going to take to produce it? Another big one is sand is used for glass. And how many things can you think of that we use glass for? I mean, it's everywhere. And in fact, in Africa even, there's some wars being fought over it because not all sand is the same, and you need different qualities and different kinds of grains and all of that to produce different products. And it's actually becoming a rare commodity. It's hard to imagine that, but it's actually becoming rare. So anyways, thanks for walking with me today. You can check out more of my information on www.barryjwilson.com. I've got a free searchable blog with many topics on this and other land use issues. I also invite you to listen to the Virtual Time Machine podcast. We broadcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. You can get it through RSS. Leave me a note here and tell me what you think of this. Did you know all this, or were you a little surprised? I was pretty surprised when I found this out. Thanks a lot. I hope you're having an awesome day.